giving you those hints until you finally wake up and you finally realize.
Well, see, also too, now you remember we talked about this too. It's their normal. It's what they perceive as normal.
It
You
is.
know, because I mean, I can say that because like my husband and I were talking, and he was raised by a narcissist. His father was a narcissist. And then he went and married a narcissist.
I
They're
was
like
raised
you.
by a narcissist, married a narcissist.
Right. Because it, you know, he didn't recognize that it wasn't normal because that was normal for him.
Right.
You know, and he didn't realize until, you know, later, and I actually way later, but you know, it's like he just felt like if he could just get along, you know, if he could just get along, you know, because that's what he was doing, trying to just get along. But you can't just get along with a narcissist because they're crazy as shit.
No, I actually, I just did a video about how, you know, really when you're arguing like with a narcissist, you know, you're not arguing, like
What's
you're
the point
not
of that?
arguing, do what?
What's the point of that?
Well, yeah, but it's, you're trying to rationalize with an unrationalized person.
Right, right.
But here's the kicker on that is that you're trying to get your point across.
Mm-hmm.
You think they're fighting you. They're not fighting you. They're fighting their own internal dialogue. There's a whole third party that is there in that situation when you're arguing with a narcissist because of the fact that you're trying to get across your point and they're not hearing you. They're not seeing you because, I mean, one, they can't. But the fact is that they're actually arguing with the other side of them of all that unworthiness and stuff. And now they hear the key points of what you're pulling out, you know, of what you're focusing. But what that does is that drives them into their loony bin, you know, episode. And so it's like, you're really fighting with two different personalities, two different people. And it's like, you wonder why you're just constantly like, okay, I give up. And it just gets to that point of eventually it's just like, you just give up because there's no point. And that's just
what can you do? You're like, okay, I'm done. But that also makes you like retreat into your shell most of the time, you know?
What enables the abuse. Really, now your internet goes. Something about the West Coast. I was on a call yesterday about the West Coast and it kept freezing up too as well. Hopefully you don't disconnect like you did last week. But yeah, you know, guys, when you're fighting with a narcissist, you know, there really are a couple different personalities at play. You know, that is why it is, you know, it is a personality disorder because they have numerous conversations going on with themselves. And so you don't really know who it is you're fighting with. What part of their ego, what part are they coming into contact? What did you trigger within them? And that is why it just becomes completely irrational. And you're constantly feeling like you're banging your head against the wall because you're never going to get your point across. You're never going to be able to rationalize with a narcissist. They're just, they just live so much in their ego. And you have to remember too, is that your ego, you have to befriend your ego, but your ego is there to, in some ways, to keep you safe. Your ego doesn't like change. And so even if your environment is unhealthy, if your environment is unsafe, your ego wants to keep you there because your ego doesn't like change. So you have to understand is that sometimes you have to let your ego go. You have to surrender to that and, you know, really determine your self-worth. You have to determine your own ability. You have to determine, you know, you got the entertainment background on. But you have to sit there with that and process and realize, are you in a safe environment? Are you constantly nervous? Are you constantly going within that mode? And how do you feel? You know, embodiment is something powerful and that we really need to focus a lot on. Getting in touch with those emotions and those feelings. Being in touch with your emotions and your feelings does not make you a weak person. Honestly, if you're not in touch with your emotions and your feelings, you're that weak person because you can't confront your own self, you know? And so how can you be strong if you can't even deal with the internal battles that are going on within your own self? And we need to learn to confront that. And we need to learn to be okay with that. We need to be good with the emotions. We need to be good with our feelings, and being able to express them. Tapping. A lot of times, anxiety builds. We build it, and you feel it in your spine, you feel it in your heart rate.
Right.
You feel that anxiety coming on. Well, I don't know if you guys know, but I am a TFT, EFT practitioner, and, you have the meridian points that you can tap on, and you can use thought. But, one thing is that you can simply do at any moment, and no one's going to look at you necessarily completely odd, and who really cares, because you're doing it for yourself. But, when you feel that anxiety coming on, literally tapping your heart space, just tapping your heart space and just saying to yourself, I am safe. I am secure. I am loved.
Yes.
Will make that anxiety go away, and also brings you into that present moment. Because what we do with the anxiety, as the anxiety is running, it's starting to run rapid. You're starting to run scenarios through your head that haven't even happened. You're starting to run conversations that haven't even happened, because the expectation, what's going to happen, especially around the narcissist, that, if you go try to speak to them, oh, you're going to deal with that. You're going to deal with this. You're going to deal with that. And so it gets to that point. But, if your heart, we need to be coming from our heart space, and it doesn't matter how that other person is, it's how you do. But bring yourself back to that present moment. Just, we don't talk about breathing, so many people that grow up in dysfunctional homes, you shallow breath. You breathe from your chest because you are so on alert all the time.
Yes.
Think about how bad that is for you. And then we're also taught of, sucking your stomach because, be skinnier,
well, you're living in fight or flight too.
Right. And you're training the thing. You train yourself to be in that. But we learned how to breathe. You immediately, there are studies now that show 4 days, just 4 days of mindful breath work for 10 minutes a day can actually start reprogramming and rechanging your nervous system.
Yes.
How simple is that? And what just mindful breathing is that when you take that deep breath, I love Buddha dolls. Like I collect Buddha dolls. Like I love the fat belly laughing Buddha dolls. And, that's what I tell people is think about those fat Buddha dolls, expand that belly out. When you take that breath in, expand that belly out, expand it as far as you possibly can. And breathe it in. And, it is good, to hold it in for a few seconds, especially as you're learning to mindfully breathe, so that it's kind of more so is that you recognize how your stomach is supposed to feel when you breathe. That's why people will tell you to hold that breath, for about 4 to 5 seconds, and then you let it out and then deflate it. And then they tell you to also hold your breath for 4 to 5 seconds. And that's so you understand what it actually feels like to let the air go out of your stomach.
Well, it gets you in touch with your body.
Right.
It connects you, because many times we're disconnected, especially when we're in this place where we're dealing with narcissism or anything like that. And, I have to say this too. We deal with narcissists on all levels. We deal with narcissists at work and jobs really bad. There's so much of that. And so we deal with that too. And so we are conditioned to just hold it in, tuck it in, fight, get ourselves together, stay on alert, all this stuff, instead of learning how to connect to our bodies and feeling what things feel like to our bodies, so that we know what our bodies are saying to us. Yeah. How is our body talking to us? Because many times we don't know that. We have no idea. We've not been taught that. We don't know that, yes, our bodies speak to us. Not only do they speak to us, they can heal us. Our bodies have been designed to heal us. But we don't know that because we are so busy in this place where we're, in a ball and we're closed off and, all of these things. And so when we begin to learn how to breathe and to feel our heart and really feel, and feel into our solar plexus. Because for me now, I know that certain things, when I start feeling fear, many times it's in my solar plexus. So it's like, that's your power center. So that's the place where I begin to feel, my stomach starts fucking hurting and, these kind of things start happening. I feel butterflies or whatever, and so then I know that is what I'm dealing with. I am dealing with some sort of fucking fear, whether it's internal or external, but what, how you feel. Same thing, with my heart. I read a story today that it just hit my heart so hard. Shit, I was about to cry. A young lady, 20, I think she was 27, 28. And she had a little child about 3, I think. Beautiful young lady, cute kid. She was behind in her bills and had been to court and did like I think they said she was behind. When I counted it up, I don't think it was $2,000 that she was behind. Her rent and her light bill or gas bill or something, whatever, but it wasn't $2,000. But she went to court. They gave her like a payment plan where she could pay like $150 a month on it or whatever. And she had just got a job, was about to start a job and everything. So things were looking up. Well, she didn't think so because she went and stepped in front of a damn train with her 3-year-old. And I'm like, oh my God. And this was in the UK. But I was like, oh my God. And they said that when they looked at the cameras and, people were around because they had security and all that stuff. But I had to talk with my husband about it. And I said, there's a lot of people going in and out of those trains.
Yeah.
How they can't really, keep their eye on everybody that's roaming around, you don't know. But they said that she like walked one way and she, and her actions looked erratic when they looked at it on the camera. And they said one of the security was like, they kind of saw it a little bit, but it's a lot of people.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, she just stepped out in front of the train and the train hit her.
And everything's temporary.
And that's the thing. That is the thing. It's like, why are we, doing permanent solutions for temporary problems? I mean, that's a bunch of bullshit. I don't understand that anyway. I'm like, I think about it and I'm like, I've been broke as hell before. But I ain't never thought about killing myself.
Well, I did once, and I was 16.
Oh, wait. No, I'm not going to say thought about it, but it was like a fleeting passing something.
No, I actually, I attempted, and I had angels come to me that night, but mine was the abuse. I had plotted my revenge. I plotted my revenge towards my parents. And actually I wasn't 16, I was 17. I had gone from being the one of 3 kids that the abuse, got sent around to that I was the only one. And that year, and I actually have a permanent neck injury from my father, from that year. And it was way too freaking much. And so my parents had, they were going away for the weekend. So, you should have thought like, ooh, big party, all that. Nope. My plan was to kill myself that weekend, and I wanted my parents to come home to find a dead daughter in her bed. That was my revenge. That was what I planned. That was what I had entailed because I was.
That's some pain. That's some pain.
I wanted them to.
There's no way that. I can't. It boggles my mind. It's like God, and I felt for that young lady because I was like, I've been there before. I've been there. But I had to
ask me though, like, aren't you happy it didn't happen? And there were so many things, and at that time, my faith really wasn't as strong as, it is. But, there were so many things that night that happened. One, like I had told a group of people who I normally don't hang out with that I would hang out with them that night, but I didn't think that they would care about me, because I never hung out with them anyways. I was always with that group of people, I always said, oh, I'm going to come. But, I had my
I'll come and never show up.
Right. Because I had my safe group that I hung out with on the weekends and stuff. Because my weekends, in high school and stuff, I had my safe group that I went and I got drunk with, and I drank myself to sleep every night during the weekends. But I had my group that I knew I was safe to do that around, but so this group of people, I normally didn't hang out with. I normally, I didn't. And I said, oh yeah, I'm gonna come, but I never normally come. So I was like, perfect, I can do this. So I took 500 extra strength Tylenol pills. And so, but then also at that night, like normally, like I always lock the doors, well, I did the next day because so the one girl kept calling me and was like, where are you? Like, why aren't you here? And this is the housemaids. And I was like, I'm not coming. Well, I started to get, of course, really drowsy because I was also drinking with it. So, it would take the effect. she was like, there's something wrong with you. Like she could just hear, and it wasn't really a great friend, like someone, but she was like, something's wrong with you. Something is going on. And I was like, no, I'm fine. And she was like, no, something's not. And I was like, look, I'll just talk to you later. I'm not coming out tonight. About 45 minutes later, my doorbell starts ringing off the hook. And I'm like, I'm not even dealing with this. Girl, she went home and she got her mom. And they came. Now I had actually, which shows like I'm supposed to be here, I left the door unlocked. And they came barging into my house, everything like that. I refused to go to the hospital or anything like that. But that mother, she stuck her finger down my damn throat and she was making me vomit those damn pills up, everything like that. And then they stayed with me for the whole entire weekend and like nursed me back to health. And people ask me, they're
and
like,
did your parents even know?
nope, no freaking clue.
Wow.
No idea, none at all.
Wow.
That could have been their possibility. They could have come home. And it's so funny because I think back and I think of like just narcissists. I can just imagine the smear campaigns that like they would have said to like cover up different things. And people ask me of like, well, am I happy I didn't, go through with it? And I'm like, yeah, because I look at so many, I've had so many bad situations happen. I've had some really crappy, horrible things, but I've also had very many blessings, if I wouldn't be here, my kids wouldn't be here, and I adore, and my kids are such a complete blessing. And so it's like, you think of all those things and, you wonder if some of those people who have committed suicide, like if they could have seen into the future,
yes,
would they have done it? And the reality is no, they wouldn't
yeah,
have given
and that's one of the things that I think about is like, people these days, because we had a whole last discussion about this. And I was like, people these days just, especially the younger ones, they're so short-sighted.
But it's also instant gratification, and even with the aspect,
because we live in a microwave society.
Okay, if I press this button now, my problem should be gone. And that's not how it happens. We have to work through all these things, but so many people don't want to do that.
Well, they don't want to do the work.
Well, they don't want to do anything on it. I mean, I think
they don't want to do that.
Enabling society of just accept this, accept that, and we put up with it.
Well, I mean, we get mad if we drive through McDonald's or Starbucks and they take longer than 5 minutes,
Right.
It's like, oh, it's fast food. Ain't this supposed to be fast food? I can't get it yesterday. And that's how people look at everything.
Like, I'll straight up tell you, like, one of my weaknesses, I love French fries. Love French fries. I'm such like, oh my God, I love French fries. KFC makes the best damn French fries.
Really? I didn't even know KFC made French fries. I just used to mashed potatoes and shit.
Their French fries, they changed their recipe when the whole chicken sandwich competition like came out, and their fries are the best. I am doing a plug-in.
Better than McDonald's?
God, nothing. KFC has the best fries.
Might have to try that because KFC is right there. I can walk to it.
Girl, they know us. They know me. They know a couple of us because we go and we get fries. Like, we'll eat a salad and we have our fries. But like, we'll have to sit there and wait for it. And, some people will complain. And I'm like, why are you complaining? Because it's fresh food.
Right, you're going to get it fresh.
If you're sitting there waiting, that means that it is just now coming out. It's going to be hot. It's going to be fresh. Why are we complaining? Oh, so you wanted the last bit that was sitting there for the 30 minutes or whatever that is now cold.
No, the 2 hours.
Right? Well, no, this KFC is rocking. This one is always like there.
I was going to say, it's wild because they have here, they had 75-cent wings on Monday.
Oh.
So I would go get 10 or 20 of them, hot wings.
Yeah.
My husband would be like, go over there and get us some hot wings. So I would get 10. He'd be like, baby, get 20. So I go get 20 hot wings, right? Well, they went up to $1 now.
Oh.
Because I went to get them and I got 20 and he goes, that'll be 21, whatever. I said, wait, my math don't say that. And I've always been one of those people. I was almost a math major. I can do math in my fucking head.
Yeah.
So I was clicking. I was like, no, it's not supposed to be that. It's supposed to be about 16, dollars and change, whatever. He goes, oh yeah. He goes, they went up to $1. I was like, they did? He said, yeah. And then I laughed and I said, well, that's actually still good.
Yeah, and actually, to be truthful, so my kids and I, get a little off on food subjects. So my kids and I, we did that whole, like, when everyone came out with their chicken sandwich competition.
Who had the best one? Who had the best?
KFC.
Okay.
KFC
I wonder, because I didn't have Popeye. I didn't try Popeyes for a while. I tried it one time. It was actually good, but it was way after that.
The chicken sandwich actually won. But when you think of like the meal of like the fries and the sandwich, KFC hands down.
Okay.
Yeah. We got on. We so got on that whole.
See, because I used to do the chicken littles all the time when they had them. Those were my favorite.
Yeah, we
run through and get a couple of chicken littles and go on about my business. And then after a while, I got to the point where I stopped eating all that fucking bread. So I like have one with bread and the rest of them I take the bread off and just eat the chicken. Oh my God, I tell you.
Okay, but back to instant gratification. but that
was good examples though, right?
It is. It's so true. But we don't want to sit there and we don't want to do the work, but then we want to complain.
Wait.
And you've got to do the work. It's
like manifesting, girl, like manifesting. Everybody wants to write it 3, 6, 9 times and then it manifests tomorrow. Or they want to write it on a bay leaf, or they want to burn some ancestor money.
And the fact of the matter,
expect it to happen, show up in their bank account tomorrow.
You're all listening to everything wrong, because that stuff don't work. Let's just say it as, because you're
missing. It does, just not tomorrow.
Yeah, but the reality is when you're doing those aspects, the
feeling is the secret.
You're in desperation,
Right.
And don't get me wrong, I've been there, and exactly nothing manifested, because I'm sitting there like, is this really going to manifest? Is this, if I do this, you're
looking at it like, I'm gonna do this stuff, and if it don't work, I ain't doing it no more, because this shit don't work.
Right. But I've been watching a lot of Dr. Joe here lately, within some studies, and an amazing, I don't have the book in front of me. There's an amazing book. Actually, I'm not going to tell the name of the book, because it's I got some good like key like stuff coming out of some of the combinations of it. But there's a great acronym that I've learned for manifesting. CART. What do you think it stands for?
What is it?
CART.
KART?
CART.
I don't know.
Create.
Mm-hmm.
Because see, that's what a lot of people, you guys don't realize. Like, pretending is the key when it comes to manifesting. You have to create. You have to build that vision. You have to build that in your head. You have to visualize it actually happening. Then what happens? Like, and I actually posted this on Facebook today.
You have to put yourself in that place.
Yeah, like
and have that feeling.
You
like
have to
it's already
feel
done.
it. You have to feel it. That's why today on Facebook, for all y'all who follow me, that is actually what I was, an embodiment exercise of manifesting is actually what that whole envision the door. What is it? That door. Everyone has a door. What is that door of that what does your door look like? What is it? And when you open up the behind, that is your dream life. And go crazy, go wild. What is your dream life? We have no limitations. We're infinity beings. We're intimate. I mean, not intimate. We
are that too.
We are that. But
we're infinite.
Infinite, yes, was the word I was trying to say. But you have to create that in your head. You have to build it. What does it look like? What does it smell like? What does it feel like? What is the texture?
Yes.
Who are there? Yes. All of that. And when you're sitting there in that moment of that, you have created this masterpiece of your life, those feelings. Now, what are those feelings, those excitement? That's when you ask for your manifestation, because that is the subconscious is responding to your feelings. The subconscious doesn't listen to words. That's not the language of the gods. That's not the language of the universe. It is sound therapy. It is feelings. It is vibrations. It is frequency. So you got to build and create. That's the C, create. And then as you're feeling that, now you got to ask. Ask in that moment. Ask in
What's
that.
The R?
receive.
Mhm.
Act as if it's already happened. You are
Yep.
you create, you ask, you receive, you give thanks.
Yes.
So it's the circle of it. And you have to do that. And that's what a lot of people don't realize, is that for something to manifest, and actually a great example, think of everyone who's listening to this that try to manifest something, and the opposite always happens. You're always waiting for the other food. That is the vibration you're putting out. You're not actually, like, you're thinking it. So your conscious mind is thinking the thoughts that are going along with it. But that's not what your subconscious is hearing. Your subconscious is listening to your conscious mind. And so you have that, oh, this stuff isn't really going to happen. Oh, watch, this will probably happen. And that's that feelings. You're starting to get that anger, that anxiety, that sadness. And that's why that stuff continues to happen instead of what it is you're really creating in your head, because you don't believe it. So that's
exactly, because
you have to receive it, because you've got to believe that what you've created, you've asked for, you've received, you are worthy,
you
are
have.
and then you give thanks. You have to act, pretend like
I'm telling you, if anybody would listen to me do my affirmations about my damn house,
yeah,
they will listen to me talk about my spa pool like I'm sitting in this motherfucker right now.
Yeah, and that is what
because that's how I feel. It's like I felt it, and I imagine it, especially when I get in my bathtub.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine my spa pool.
Yeah.
And then the other thing too is I already did the fucking research.
Yeah.
So I know where to get it from. I know how much it's going to cost, all of those things, because I already did that, because I'm already there.
That doesn't matter when you're manifesting, but that's good to have that research, and for when you have that opportunity, you know exactly.
I'm saying, because the opportunity is here, because I have already been in that pool.
Yeah.
I have slept in my damn house. It ain't even built yet, but I've slept in it.
Yeah.
I designed all of the way I want the property. And I actually saw this girl the other day when I went to the fair. This girl had her, she bought a piece of land and it had a shed on it. So she took the shed out and she remodeled it and made it into her studio for Reiki. So she sees people for Reiki in the studio, and it's like right by the river. And she has set up a place where when they finish, they can go out and just sit by the water, and have some tea or something. And I was like, now that's what's up.
That's nice.
Yeah. So, she don't got to rent nobody's place or nothing like that. And she's got her own spot. And it was so beautiful the way she set it up. She showed me a picture and I was like, oh my God. I said, girl, I love this, And the other thing is, I was happy for her.
Yes.
And that's the other piece. People are so crazy and jealous hearted. Be happy for somebody else getting what they have already.
Mm-hmm.
Because because I'm like this. I'm next. I just wanted to see the design because I liked it, and I was like, I might have to recreate that. And I told her, I said, I don't have a shed on my property. I said, I was looking at those little houses that they have that like the Home Depot and the Lowe's.
Yeah.
To do that. I said, and she said, yeah. She said, actually, we weren't sure if we could use the shed. She said, once we got in there, she said, with some things, she said, but my husband, fixed it or whatever. She said, we were able to use it. She said, and that was actually what I was going to do. I was going to just get one of those little houses and use that, and create my whatever you call it. I think it's sanctuary or something.
On that shed aspect, Edisto Beach, here. I know a guy who, him and his wife, who they wanted to, they inherited a little bit of land somewhere like right there by the beach.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have money to put a house or anything like that. Girl, they went and got one of those sheds. He does modeling and stuff like that. They went and turned it into a 1-bedroom, like made an upstairs, like kind of like loft style bedroom.
Yes.
Bathroom and a tiny little kitchen, and has the tiny little living room, and they rent it out now. It's a Vivo. Type thing. And now they have all this added income and stuff. And now they actually just bought a big house down at Edisto and everything like that. So, I mean, it's creative what you want and take those opportunities and be like thankful and be happy and be that girl. But we live in such a jealous of, well, they don't deserve that. Why don't they deserve that?
And what do you know about it?
Right. Because
this is what I had to deal with at work the other day. The girl was so jealous and stuff. And I looked at her and I started to say something. Then I thought, no, I'm just going to give her this.
But sometimes it's like, why are you so jealous because of the fact, okay, yeah, some people do have a golden horseshoe up their ass. Hey, great for them, so excited for them. They made all the right choices in life. They didn't grow up with a dysfunctional family. They have everything. I am so happy and I am so excited for you. And I just hope that you are passing on those blessings to other people. That is great. But when someone does start succeeding and someone is getting their life, you have no idea what possibly they have been through to get there. So why are you judging yourself? Why are you competing yourself? Why are you jealous? Because if you knew what that person had to go through to get that, you're sure as hell wouldn't be freaking jealous.
And that's exactly what I said, because I said, I had a run-in with this girl before. And I said to her, I said, listen, you weren't there when I was in my 20s and my 30s and my 40s, and I was working 2 and 3 and 4 fucking jobs, having to write on the calendar where I was going to work, because I didn't know where I was working every day, because I didn't work the same place, So I was like, okay, I'm going here for these 3 days.
And I was a young girl. She didn't have no phone with no calendar on it that you could set an alarm and be like, be here, be here, be there. It was
there you go. Old school calendar on the wall. I had a calendar in my pocketbook and I would write down where I had to go to work. And sometimes I would fuck it up. I think I can remember twice where I went to the wrong damn facility to work because I thought I was on their schedule. And they looked at me like, what are you doing here? And I was like, I'm supposed to be working. I'm not. And then I had to think a minute. And then I went to look at my damn calendar. I was like, oh, I'm not supposed to be here. Okay, I'm going. So then I have to call the other place and say, hey, I'm running a little late, because I was at this other place where I was working. And I was like, you weren't there during those times when I was working like a mule, leaving one job, going to another, and still raising fucking kids.
Yeah.
You wasn't there. I said, and had a husband that was not supportive and didn't care. You wasn't there. I said, now that I'm here where I don't have to work fucking like that. I don't have to work like a mule. I don't got to work 3 and 4 or 5 jobs. I have a husband that's supportive. You know what I'm saying? Don't begrudge me that. Yeah. Because you weren't there.
Yeah. But yet we sit there and we judge someone's present moment with no accountability of, well, what did that person have to go through to get to that?
Well, people say that all the time. They say, oh, I want to live your life. And I say, you really don't want to do that. I don't want to let nobody else live life of mine.
I do what I do, people, so you don't have to. That is why no one should grow up how I grew up. No one should live how I lived for the first 38 years of my life. And I want to share my wisdom. I want to share my knowledge so you don't have to. I want to help you to do that. So no one should be like, oh, your life. Now, don't get me wrong. In a few years, you might be jealous, but what it took me to get to what I have manifested into my life by doing the work, it's going to be beautiful and it's going to be gorgeous.
You know what? Doing the work, because people, I find that they want to bewitch their way into it, or they want to do like Genie.
But
and it's like, no, it doesn't.
No, we can do the Genie. We can do the Genie, but the reason why, like, you and I could do the Genie, but most people can't do the Genie because you haven't done the work. It's the feelings. It is the feelings which go into that. And, as I said earlier, we just live in the society of that. If you're in touch with your feelings, you're weak. Well, that really needs to be reversed. It really needs to be reversed.
Well, so many of us, to be honest, so many of us have been taught to fight rather than feel.
Yes.
I heard that on actually on Empire one day. And I was like, that is profound. One of the kids that was talking about the mama, and they were talking about getting in touch with your feelings or something like that. And one of the kids said, yeah, well, she'd rather fight than feel.
Yeah.
And I was like,
I think I remember that scene. And
you remember that scene?
Yeah, they flashed back to like a whole bunch of things because she actually kind of sat there. She sat back and she was like, yeah, I think I actually remember that scene.
It was crazy, but it was so profound. And I remembered it. Since I was like, that is so real. I actually had a conversation with my mom about that. I was like, Mom, you remember this? And I thought about it because actually I smiled because, to be honest, that was me. I feel like I had to fight my whole life. I felt like Oprah on The Color Purple.
I had to fight my whole life.
See, I fought, but I didn't fight. You know, I really.
Well, you couldn't because you were in that situation. You can't fight a narcissist. Shit, they crazy.
But see, I always knew it was like a losing battle. Like I was smart enough to always know that. Like there's no point. So I would sit there and just take it, you know, and not have any comeback. So I mean, I taught myself the freeze and the fawn, you know, of just going in submissive, but like I knew there was no point, you know.
Right.
But I mean, even if I did fight back, you know, because I
What
guess
was gonna get you?
I think my sister fought. My sister did try to fight and stuff like that. And he finally broke her, and you know, she went into submissive mode onto it because I mean he'd beat the shit out of her. I mean, you know, and I witnessed that. I watched that. And so it was just kind of like even arguing. I was the mouth, I was the vocal one, you know, my throat chakra when I was young was very, 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 very vocal onto it. But even then it just like got to the point into like my teenage years where it was just like, oh my God, just shut up.
You
like,
almost want to say, I can't wait to get out of this house.
Oh, well, remember I ran away. So, I mean, I did. And
I just left. I left. I was 18 and I was like, I think I turned 17. I was like, I gotta get the fuck out of here. I don't know what I'm going to do. And you know what I did? I took the first train smoking, and that was my ex. He went to join the military and we went the fuck across the country. I was like, I gotta go. I can't stay here.
After my neck injury, I could not take it anymore. I reached out to an aunt who lived here. And I was just like, I can't, because I'd already attempted the suicide. And now I was, you know, to this point, and I could not bear it anymore.
Was she supportive?
She was like, you're moving here, you know. She bought me, you know, the tickets, everything like that. And then, you know, it was even bad is that, you know, my mother was completely disassociated, you know, she was just completely just nothing on it. But like, so like I told my mom, I was like, I'm leaving, I'm moving. And you know, my mom wouldn't even sit down and discuss it with my father. Like my mother didn't even have the thing to say, like it wasn't, honey, no, I'll make things better, or you know, we'll work on this together, or
None of that.
It quickly went to, well, you're telling your fucking father. You know what? Sure, bitch. You know, because you haven't done shit for me my whole life. You've sat there the whole time doing it, you know, just like, you know, when my sister moved out because he dragged her, she was like 21, and like he dragged her down the stairs, beating the crap out of her. And like 2 days later, she moved out, and we were at dinner table. It was a required family meal. And she had 2 days to speak to my father, 2 days to tell my father that your daughter moved out because you beat the crap out of her. She had 2 days to speak to him. For 2 days, she acted as if nothing happened. For 2 days, she didn't speak to him. She didn't say anything or anything. We're at the dinner table, and it's, where's your sister? Where's your sister? Where's your?
Well, you lucky they didn't kill you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, she sat right there. Well, he clocked me falling out of the chair, everything. Like I took all the punches she was supposed to like take, but she was too scared of him. But so like when it came to me moving out, I was like, fine, I'll freaking tell him. And so like he's sitting there watching TV, and I came and sat down on this couch, and I was like, yeah, just let you know, tomorrow I'm leaving, I'm moving. And he looked at me and he was like, no, the fuck you're not. What the fuck do you think? What? And I said, I'm done being your punchy bag. I'm not taking this anymore. I am out of here. I am moving with your sister. And he was like, over my dead body. And I said, I'm not fucking asking, I'm fucking telling you. And I got up and I walked upstairs and I went and finished packing my stuff. And I left. Didn't even say goodbye to them.
See, and you know, that's a shame. Because if you can leave and don't say goodbye, at least.
Nope. Did not even say
peace
goodbye.
out, my brother.
Nope. I left.
I'm out.
Nope. I had a friend taking me to the airport, everything like that. I had all of that. Like they didn't even assist with that to like even try to make me happy. And I actually, because it was the summer of my senior year. So I was in the process of transferring all my high school because I was going to graduate down here. Like I was done. And then my mom happened to call. My dad got a job working overseas. And like, it was like 2 weeks before like school started. And she was like, he'll be gone all year. Are you coming home? And I was like, he'll be gone all year. Like, I don't have to deal with him at all. And she was like, yes, he'll be gone. And I was like, fine, I'll come home and finish my senior year. And then he came home and out.
Yeah. And see, that's a shame that you even have to deal with that.
Yeah.
But do you find that it makes you a better mother,
It does.
having dealt with that?
Now, I do have to say that I did, not realizing it, the verbal abuse, because, I really wasn't awoken to that aspect. There's some parts of that manipulation. I think when my children were younger of the verbal aspect, I was that type of mother. Now the physical abuse, no, like I would have to threaten it, of course, because I got 2 boys. They're crazy. That's how boys are. But it would get to the point that like my kids would just, they'd freak out so bad and I would feel so bad. And then we would sit down and we would talk about how like, hey, like I give you so many chances. I give you so many chances to do this. And then like, why do we even have to get to this point? Like, why do we have to get to this point that we are screaming, you're crying, like, why can't we just like, when I say to calm down or, to start to behave, why can't we respect everyone? And it was really great. And it really opened a dialogue and communication. Now in my awakening period, I did realize some of those behaviors that I had learned, from my mother, and some from my father that I had adopted, of some of like the enmeshment, some of the abandonments and, the entanglements of emotions, because I was dealing with another narcissist and, I didn't know how to regulate mine. And I do realize that I did put some pressure on my older son to regulate my own emotions because I didn't know how to. So there were times where, his happiness, like we like fed off of each other on that, but there was also some stuff I didn't know that was going on. Like when I wasn't home, there were some actions that were taking place in the house that I wasn't aware of that was going on. And so we fed off, and then through therapy, some things came out. And so we were able to discuss all of it. But so the awakening and then really going and learning more, finishing up some psychology studies, my awakening, going through the mental health certificates, it really broadened my expansion of a lot of the entanglements in those dysfunctional families. One of the greatest skills, well, have you ever heard of the Karpman Triangle?
Mm-hmm.
Learning that in one of my psychology classes was actually like my biggest eye opener, of how we in dysfunctional families, we always play a role, and that's really what life is too, is we're always playing a role. But in dysfunctional families, it's, you're always a victim at one point, you're always the rescuer at one point, and you're always the perpetrator at one point. And learning that and starting to study some of the dynamics of going into enmeshment, into the entanglements, onto that, I was really able to I thank my family now on, so many examples that they gave me to be able to expand my mind and to use with these examples of how constantly of all 3 of us kids on how we did that to each other, how we, we would team up against one other one because, we had taken enough beatings, now it's your turn, and how that all just constantly plays out. And it was like, oh my God, I have to teach myself how to step out of this triangle. Like I had to, like the whole example of the box, why do we put our limits? Well, in dysfunctional families, you stay in that triangle, you're constantly playing that role. Well, why do you want to play that role? Like, why is it? And a lot of time it's because it's normal. It's because it's what you're trained to do, but
because it's your normal.
It is.
Just like, other people's normal might be that their family is loving and kind and,
Right.
doesn't do this type of shit. But in your family, that was the normal for you. And so that's what you understood. It's like a woman that gets beaten for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Right.
That's her normal. That's what she's used to. If she doesn't get her ass beat, then maybe she's having an issue.
Right. Well, and what's so bad is like, oh my God, he didn't beat me, because we have to realize negative attention is attention, whether, at all. And so when you're in that type of dynamic onto it, all of a sudden, if they change their behavior of that, they're not beating you, literally it goes, well, what are they doing? Why didn't
he must not love me?
Huh? Right.
He must not love me.
He must not love me. And then
because that's what love looks like to you.
Right. You perpetrate that fight, and that's a perfect example of the triangle of, of that psychological damage that is there of, of, okay, well, if this is normal, okay, well, what's going on? Like what, why, and like the anxiety, the depression, the anger, and it's like, no, but so I was able to recognize parts that I did. And, and it's sad to say, but like my oldest son does have narcissistic traits,
Well, I mean, but his father is one, so that would go to,
right. But I love it because I see it now. And I get to call him out on things. We speak about things, and he's open to it. We can have those rationalized conversations, but then it's really awesome because my youngest son, he's my mini me. I mean, he is literally my mini me because he is also a 3-5 projector. The only difference between him and I is I'm a non-emotional and he's an emotional, which so explains like so many things of his personality, but he is literally me. And, he looks just like me too. He's just a boy, but so we can have those conversations and, it's great because I can take my personality traits, which are, very similar to a lot of his, but like we talk about the feeding, why are you feeding in? Like, why are you giving this emotional reaction? Because, if your brother does this, he's doing this because he wants this reaction from you. Giving him this reaction feeds him, fuels him that he's now going to do this. So why are we doing A and B? And so I love that we can sit down and we can have these conversations and, of like, stop feeding him, stop feeding the narcissist. It's not actually physical food, people. It's like your emotional reactions. If you don't get your emotions in check, you're going to lose every single time. That it's just, unfortunately, it is completely true. But so it's like, you have to regulate them. You have to control them. And there's always a time and a place for a reaction and a non-reaction. And we have to learn that. But, narcissists are so great at causing that because they just constantly, like, they nag, like they're like a little chihuahua, just sits there, just keeps nipping at your damn, ankle.
You're like, sit down somewhere and shut the fuck up.
Right. But they just keep at it. They keep at it. But, that's also another tactic, that's the abusive reaction because no one sees, most of the time, like when a little chihuahua comes up and bites you, no one sees the little chihuahua. They don't make any damn noise and stuff like that.
Or they see it when you kick his ass.
That's the only time. And that's the reactive abuse.
And then they say, why'd you kick him? He's just a dog. He's just a puppy. Blah, 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 blah. They don't see that he bit your ass.
And that's, and honestly, that's a great way that is what a narcissist is. They're a damn little chihuahua that is sitting there biting your damn ankles constantly, waiting for a damn reaction from you. But
and you don't have to give it to them.
You don't have to give it to them. You don't. We have to learn how to. And I was guilty of that. I was guilty. And my children witnessed that. My children witnessed me constantly giving that reaction. They witnessed me constantly trying to validate my points. You
have to realize too, they witnessed the version of you that wasn't healed.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that we have to realize many times, because I think about that even with my own children. It's like, I used to think, Lord Jesus. And when I actually just messaged my daughter, and when I told her happy birthday this morning, and I was like, I'm just so proud of you. And I'm just, and every year I always have told them the story of their birth, so I told her how, when she was born, I went to the hospital at midnight and I was in labor all freaking day. And then I had her at 3:16 the next day. PM. So I had labored all those 25, 27 hours, whatever. And then I'd have a C-section. And I told her, I said, I always tell the story. I said, when they pulled you out, I said, I told your daddy, go look at my baby, because at that time they were stealing babies. And I was like, go look at her, because they were, take her off to the nursery and stuff before we could even really see her, because she came out, she was purple. And that was the first damn thing his stupid ass said. Oh my gosh, she's purple. Well, because, her heart rate was dropping with the contractions, and that was why they had to get her out. And so I told her that story, and I was like, I said, but we were so happy when you came. We were so happy, I said, and you were such a beautiful baby. Girl, she looked like an angel. She was so pretty. Big curls, and just rosy cheeks and just beautiful. And, she had like sandy color hair. She's beautiful.
Yeah.
And I told her, I said, we were so happy, that you came. I said, and I told her, I love you so much and I'm so proud of you. And I really am. And I'm proud of the fact that, even because I felt like I damaged my kids because I worked so much, and I used to tell people I spend quality time with my kids, not quantity.
Yeah.
Because I was fucking never home. I was always at fucking work, and my kids, they grew up to be decent human beings. Nobody's in prison. Nobody would, well, they all, anyway, that's another story, but nobody's in prison and everybody's doing their thing and taking care of themselves. I don't have to take care of any grown people, all that stuff. Because these days people are taking care of grown kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I refused. I was like, that's not the fuck how we gonna do.
Yeah.
You're gonna grow up and you're gonna go do your shit, and so I can do mine. And that was really, and so I'm just so grateful and thankful of that. And I think about that all the time. And even, at those times I'm like, y'all don't know. I said, I am so privileged because I felt like that was the greatest job that I was supposed to do in this life. Is be their mama, and then God blessed me with the bonus one. So, and he's amazing too. So I'm just super excited, about all of that, and I'm just, when I think about it, it's like, wow, wow. Now I just got a message from her. I love you too, Mom. But on that note, this has been Ebony and Ivory. We've done this day of service. It's been amazing. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. Those of you that catch the replay, make sure you let us know where you are watching from, because, it's cool and good. And we always have a good time when we come and we talk, so much wisdom and so much knowledge and so much healing, and if you guys want to reach out to either one of us or both of us, and we also have a group. What's the name of the group?
It is Narcissistic Survivors Healing Lounge.
So you can join us in our group, because we'll be doing some things in there, because I want to do some training and some teaching and some different things in there, and to support you guys, because we know that it's hard. It's hard when you even look up and see that you've been with a narcissist, been married to one or been raised by one. When you look up, because, it's like, it's buzzwords now.
Yeah.
Narcissism is buzzwords. That's what we're using now, and sometimes people aren't narcissists. They just may have narcissist tendencies or traits.
Right. And it's because you were raised by, you
Right.
can have it, but it is that
Because
awareness.
a lot of times we don't even know.
No.
We don't know.
I'm going to say I was guilty of narcissistic traits. I was completely, because it was my normal aspect, but
Right. It was how you survived.
But that's the great thing of of us talking like with our kids tonight about how, like, my tower moment. I could sit here and dwell completely on every aspect of that, but I am so thankful that it happened, and I'm thankful that my children are young enough that I can reprogram them on with my healing journey. Is that I've had this opportunity that universe, God, spirit, came to me and has spoken to me and has allowed me to heal, because now that I have gotten my mental wellness under control, and now that I have healed, I now have the capability to heal my children, and I now have the capability to correct that. So it's a beautiful path and a beautiful journey. It's if you allow it to happen and you don't look at the negatives, you don't focus on it, and you focus on the positives, and you learn how to reprogram. And so, like, if you are struggling with that, Tammy and I are both here. We both have programs. Mine is 8 weeks from chaos to peace, where I walk you through, I guide you with practical exercises, mental health and wellness, to reprogram those negative thought patterns. Let's manifest, let's work together. Let's change your life. I can be followed here, Megan Marie. I also do have a business.
TikTok.
I know. I am on TikTok, Peace, Love, and Light Healing. That is the name of my business. And then I am Peace, Love, and Light Healing on TikTok, Instagram, and also my YouTube channel is I am Peace, Love, and Light Healing with Megan Marie.
And I'm everywhere you want to be. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram, I'm on a YouTube channel. I would love it if you subscribe and watch some videos, because I'm trying to get that thing monetized. I'm on TikTok. I do lives on there as well. I'm also on Clubhouse. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. Got a business page too. You know, I don't use it that much, but it's there. But yeah, so if you are looking, you know, for healing, I also do my program is called 8 Weeks to Limitless, and it is just 8 one-to-one sessions with you and I. And we also come together as a group twice in that time, which is good because, you know, you get to see other people and, you know, talk to them and see what everybody is dealing with and all that kind of stuff. But it helps you just to grow and to connect to your soul and to learn how to listen to your body and all of this stuff, because I know that so many people are dealing with that. You know, people are, and I've talked to women that are like 6 and 7 figure earners and stuff, and they're still dealing with, you know, am I enough?
Mm-hmm.
And it's crazy, and it boggles my mind, you know, that these women, you know, they're like at the top of the food chain in their industries and different things, and they're still dealing with, am I enough? Yeah. You know, and it's something that women deal with anyway, because, you know, we're in this patriarchal society. And so, you know, I noticed that and I saw the need for that. And plus, I've been in healthcare for 32 years. So if you're in healthcare and you need some support, reach out, because that's another area. But thank you so much for joining us. And yes, we'll be back next week.
Yes, we will. Every Wednesday, 5 p.m. Pacific.
Same bat time, same bat station.
Yep, we will be here.
And I want to encourage y'all, if y'all haven't seen Wakanda Forever, please go. That movie is fire. Yes, I want to see that. They show some scenes of Chadwick, you know, everybody was in tears in the movie, and yeah, it was amazing. It was really a good movie. Very good from start to finish. Yeah. All right, everyone. Well, we hope you have a wonderful night. Have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next week. Hit us up, DM me if on mine with Thrive if you're interested in talking about how I can help you. Yeah. Peace, love, and light. Peace, love, and light, and healing, baby. Namaste. Namaste. Bye. Bye.